Welcome in for another edition with The Meeple's Champion. We've been discussing a lot of games lately, and today's game is going to be a different approach of a game. It's a little bit more of options, and that game is definitely a little bit closer to heart than most. This game is Near and Far. Now, Near and Far is a very different game in respect to you can play it by itself. So, 2, 3, 4 player game, and it's great. However, it has the option, if you want to play this in a much longer transition. Now, I personally have only played this game in groups of 2 to 4 people for solo game experiences. I have not done the longer version of this, but I've heard good things about it, and it's definitely been a consideration by my game group for a while of, if we're going to pick a game to do, would we pick Near and Far? Now, I think that the rule book, it's pretty straightforward. I think they use a lot of pictures in here, and that really helps to define what it is you're looking for, how to do it. There isn't a lot of questions, I feel. You play it one time, and it's pretty straightforward. I don't find it to be a very hard game to play. Sometimes you might think it's a little bit oversimplified, but that's not a detriment. There is options. There's a lot of stuff to do. It's just, I think it's intended really to be that longer multiple sessions game. And so when you're playing the solo session, it sometimes can come across a little bit, I don't want to say childish, it's just not a kid's game. It's definitely an adult's game, but it doesn't have that level of thinking, I think, that a lot of games have. I love the aspect of these notebooks that come with it, which are great shape, giving you the ability to have your story and then to travel and to go to different regions and to have different story arcs in those regions. That's really fun. I had not encountered this before. It kind of almost has a D&D feel. I feel like if this game had come out 20, 30 years ago, somebody would have looked at it and gone like, wow, that's a really good D&D game. It's not, obviously. It's such a different thing. I'm not against those. It's just not particularly my style. But I like this. And I think that somebody who is into D&D, this is a great transition to say, hey, let's go from that RPG style game over to something that has some characteristics, but it's mapped it out a little bit more. I really like that. The board itself is extremely simple. You have obviously your map above, and then below is your repetitive every time you play it town. And this is what gives you the options of where to go. I really find that the uniqueness to this game is that ability of, hey, here's this below, here's this above. Are you going to go out and go across the country? Or are you going to stay in town? You're always moving. There's always something to do. I like that. Now, I'm sure there's more games like this. I have unfortunately not played any of the other games from this company. I have not played Sleeping Gods. I have not played any of the new games that came out. I do own somewhere on this wall one of the predecessors. I do not recall the name off the top of my head, but it's not the same game. It's definitely the same art and that style, but it's more of a kid's version. This is for me from them, the only game I played that is that level. And I've heard there's about 4 or 5 that do this style, and that I really need to try some of the other ones, and I might enjoy those. I think that when it comes to the level of what you're dealing with here, for all of the components, they gave such good pieces here. The money, yes, it's cardboard, but it's a great cardboard. This is not ripping apart. And I find that the dice are good. The individual pieces, the little wooden pieces are great. The cards are great. It's really a fantastic game, and I love the art. Now, for me, you're talking about some very unique art. It feels kid-friendly while also being adult adjacent. You don't make adults feel like they're playing a kid's game, but kids feel welcome to come play the game. It's not such an adult themed art that kids aren't interested. I find that, you kind of have this separation with art where it's, hey, if it's for kids like 10 and younger, adults may not really get interested by it. If it's for adults, kids 10 and younger don't get interested. This somehow falls right on that line. That's really cool. I enjoy that. So definitely when it comes now to length of game, I played this 2-player and it still took me almost 90 minutes. It is a little bit of an investment, and I think that anybody that's getting ready to play this game has to be aware of that. If you're playing 4-player, especially if you're all new, but even if you know what you're doing, my wife and I have played this game 4 or 5 times together, and the last game still took almost 90 minutes. It's not a game that just flies by because now you understand everything. There's still questions, which is good because it means the longevity of the game. Can you play this repetitive? Yes. It took me 90 minutes because there are so many options. And because when I am going in and I decide, hey, I'm going to use a different map, or even if I'm on the same map, I'm going a different route than before, it allows me that ability to feel like I'm playing something for the first time. You know, I understand the concept of the game, but I'm still dealing with things I've never really dealt with before. That is great, and it makes it so replayability is such an important factor to me. When a game isn't replayable, I mean, why own it? Why even play it more than the one time? You played it, you realized this doesn't give me the interest to come back to it. This game does. It does it repetitively. I can take off a year in between 2 games and still put it on the table and be just as excited. I played this at one point a bunch of times during COVID. It was me and my wife, like, the reason we played 5 times is because somewhere in about a 6 or 7 month span, I played it one time with her. She had never played. I had played before, friends. She liked it, and we ended up just going and having fun and playing 2-player games with a bunch. And it's still one of the ones that when she has time, it's one we bring to the table. Now, this has not been seeded as a result of a lack of interest. It's only been seeded because my wife just happens to be going for her master's degree. It's a lot of time and work. Board games at the house have dipped in the past year. We don't play that often. We might play 1 game a month. We used to play minimum 2 games a week. So it is a big dip. And as a result, a lot of these kind of games that were coming to my table a lot more often are not. But it's going to have an increase once that's over. And it's going to be one of those things that I'm sure games that kind of have dipped for me in interest in the last year, all of a sudden I'll start playing them a bunch again. And that'll be a really important factor to going back and discussing at the end of this 365 days, hey, after day 100, you know, we're back on pace. The wife's back in. We're playing games. And all of a sudden, the game I would have thought would have dropped into the bottom, 165, not made the top 200 or the top 100, skyrocketed. Because now I'm playing it a bunch again. And I remembered how much I loved it. So, this has been Near and Far. I highly recommend it. You have been talking with the Meeples champion. And we'll check in tomorrow on day 10. Today was day 9. Cannot wait to talk to you again. Later, guys.